Hey everybody, I wanted to share some background information on democratic life skills before thinking about challenging behaviors. We had talked about this concept quite a bit, but Dan Gartrell is one of my favorite resources when we think about democratic life skills and how this relates to practice. So this is a PowerPoint that is his, but me kind of talking through it just to give you some context. Um, I'm leaving the resource there at the bottom. That way you have more stuff you can access if any of this is something you feel like you want to go back to or can be helpful. So when we think about a democratic society, this ties back to our very first class when I said, let's think about a list of how we want people to be in the world and the skills that it needs or it will require for people to be that way. This all comes back to interacting in a democratic society, and there are resources on Moodle back from one of I think our first class that I added some more information to a while back also if you want to follow up more. But what this really comes down to is this idea of democratic societies. What are those skills and how do we guide or instill that? Pretty much recapping everything that we've talked about so far. Um, Another question that has come up, and I don't know that we're going to have time to dig into it deeply, is that if this is so important, why don't we have outcomes or standards related to these things? And we do. For 0 to 8, or even 0 to 5 specifically, North Carolina Foundations for Early Learning and Development um, exists as a tool for us to use as guidance, professional practitioners, communication with families, but it really outlines what we think children are capable of doing at certain points in time from 0 to 5. An entire section is devoted to social, emotional learning outcomes. Um, while it is deep and big, I think a good way to think about that is how he has framed that here, which is that these are 5 outcomes for guidance. So thinking about guidance, it's really being proactive. It's that idea of teaching these skills before they're actually needed. Um, or as he says, solving their problems and not punishing them for problems that they don't know how to solve. So it's kind of like these conflicts happen, or let's say a child lashes out in a classroom and then we become upset or they get put in timeout, you need to take a break. But it's really punishing them for skills that we haven't taught. So think about guidance in terms of how are we proactive in creating an environment where children are able to learn these skills and practice them, and how we show up in that process. So when a teacher is guiding, the democratic life skills are going to reflect the child's ability to, and this again is recapping pretty much everything we've done at this point. How do they feel in the group? Do they feel like they are accepted and loved and safe? That's going to come before any academic learning, which is why a lot of this shows up academically, first grade, kindergarten on. We're expecting children to memorize things, regurgitate information, sit still, not do this, not do that. But if we have not fostered a good sense of self and how to communicate with others, how to share, how to act and react in certain ways, they're not going to be able to get the academic pieces. How are they able to express strong emotions in ways that don't hurt other people? Think about last week's reading around disappointment and strong emotions. How are they able to solve problems on their own? Have we solved for them always? A lot of times you'll see teachers saying, no, give it back. It was hers, rather than, what can we do? How do we make this better? Do you see the look on his face? That's a sad face. We've made him sad. That also relates to accepting qualities in others and not just clumping that as I have diverse pictures on my walls, but how are we bringing children's lives that they experience in the classroom so that they are building community for what is realistic in their lives, and how to think intelligently and ethically. That's a handful. Intelligently is part of that problem solving, but it's also related to what they know about. We are the limits of what young children know. And ethically, is where we do step into that territory of teaching ethics or ethical questions to children. If I do this, what is the impact? How could this hurt others around me? So just to kind of tie this back to theory also, and again, this is not my PowerPoint, but I love it because it almost recaps. It's like a quick, here's everything we've talked about. So think about our theory books. We know that children are going to develop just because of time and maturation, but the adult's experience is going to impact how this shows up. And as far as a cooperative learning community goes, learning is going to happen in the context of others. Learning is not going to happen in a vacuum. And when you think back, if I were to say, what did you learn in school in second grade? There's very few things that you're going to come out with me that are academic. But a lot of that you are going to think about are things that happened because of being around other people, whether it was your teacher's impact, your family's impact, your siblings, the school that you were in, your friends you were around. A lot of that is going to be what surfaces now that you reflect on, thinking about how did I learn and what did I learn when I was in fifth grade. It's going to relate to people. So our psychologists, think back again to our theory books. So when you think about Maslow, the pyramid, that very bottom layer has to do with safety and what we have in order to be well, and then what it takes to grow up that pyramid. A lot of that is related to those democratic life skills. How do I interact with others? What does self-actualization look like? And if I am not able to be okay or have a home to live in or food to put in my body, you're not going to be able to go up that pyramid. This is also reflected in brain development, human relationships, stress, how our brains are impacted by stress and traumatic experiences, kind of that nature versus nurture debate. If you want to tie this back, you can look at that short video from Khan Academy. And that intelligence are not fixed, but that we are going to be shaped by human relationships. So when we think about the first two skills, this is really about reacting to those basic safety needs. Children are not bad. They don't want to be bad. Stress can come from everything around us, and I think we can all relate to this really well right now, especially with our current situation of being on lockdown with the house, right? So these stay-at-home orders, everything that we're doing to adjust to our environment, I think it's really highlighting the relationship between our emotional well-being and our physical well-being. Stress levels can rise with any of these things, but it really impacts your amygdala, which is a part of your brain that's going to react to your environment, and it relates to this idea of fight or flight. It can show up in many different ways. You can see children becoming withdrawn, avoiding certain situations, reacting in certain situations, and aggression is one that we always see come up in early childhood, and we call it challenging behavior, and they end up getting timeout. Families come in to get involved, and ultimately the story usually unfolds so that we ask children and families to leave a program. We are setting people up for failure, which relates to him saying rejection in early childhood is making for difficulties in school and life. What he is referencing there with columns is his website, and these are all available. These are short columns that he wrote for various, I think it was Exchange or Macy, but they are readings that kind of go along with what he talks about. And you can access those at his website, and I'll share that link too if you're interested. That's not required content, but it's a great, incredible resource for you. So talking about responding to children's needs, this is where we're starting to move up the pyramid. So if you have food, if your health is okay and you've got access to the medical care that you might need, this is where all of those pieces come into play as far as being able to go up the pyramid and find that place of self-actualization. So there's lots of stages in between just being safe and healthy all the way up to feeling like you are a creative, fulfilled, and world-worthy individual. It's not about how much you know, and I think that last point is really important. Knowing and being ready to know are two different things. And I think oftentimes we expect young children to know or to give them information and learn, but we're not really thinking about where are they as far as having those life skills that allow them to be ready to learn. So when we think about this in children, a lot of this, tie it back again, nature versus nurture, stair steps for scaffolding. A lot of that has to do with thinking about where is the young child now and what can we do to help them progress. We haven't talked about authentic assessment very much in this specific class, so much as observation and paying attention to what you're seeing, but that'll come up a little bit more because I have one more PowerPoint to share. And the case of Alex, just so you know this context, is another one of his articles. These are going to be available. I'll share his website. So we've talked about this nonstop. You have to build a relationship with a young child, not just one, but with the child, with the group of children and family. And that's not always easy, and not all families are going to be receptive to your initial way of building a relationship. But that's where we also have to think about our own expectations of families. What is the context of the family? Where are they from? What is their culture? How do they interact? What is their life situation right now? Not all families are going to fit that mold of, think back to when I said, think of a picture of family, and many of you named a mom, a dad, a kid, a dog, a fence. We have got to move beyond that to think about how our communication style is going to have to adapt in order to fit the families that we work with. Children need to be able to express strong emotions in ways that don't hurt other people. This is where our guidance comes into play. We are proactive. We teach in advance. What is appropriate? How do we intervene and when do we intervene? So think about guidance talks, conflict mediation. How are we using our meeting time or circle time? Are we using it to practice skills, or are we using it to recite days of the week? Both have value, but it's very important to think about the value of all of the topics and see where this group of children might be and what we need to be spending our time on. To solve problems creatively. This is where the open-ended activities, developmentally appropriate practice come into play. Rather than telling children how to fix a situation, think back to our class when we were talking about intervention and what happens when children are having a meltdown over something. How do we coach them through solving it? And how are we giving them the power to try to solve things and take risks without making them feel like they have failed or it didn't work? And where do we situate ourselves in what we believe in that too? We can't give children the space to try to solve something and then shoot them down for what they tried to do. So we have to accept, and this is about children too, but teachers, that we are so different, but we cannot overemphasize the difference or the idea of community without letting those two go hand in hand. Because if we think about community, at some point you're going to move away from each person having this unique being itself. But if you focus so much on individualized you, it's really hard to build community and connection. So this is a space that we've talked about all semester too. How do we work to bridge that gap so that children are unique individuals, yet they are also able to see that their actions hurt others and that they can help others? Where does the line for us to build that sense of me and we at the same time? And lastly, this is that intelligent and ethical piece again, and that all of us are going to make mistakes and things are not going to always work perfectly, but we do have to model this and we have to support children thinking through ethical questions. How is this going to hurt? Did you see that how this hurt? If you do that, as we are teaching those proactive skills, really talk about what if. Provide some scenarios. Let young children think about the impact of their actions. So, in order to do all of this, we just need to set up the perfect environment, right? No, it is about the awareness that we are not going to be perfect, but that what we can do is have an awareness of this. We have to be consistent. We need to use the same strategies consistently. But we also need to build attachments and relationships with children, because not all children respond in the same way to the same strategies. Families have to be included. We have to work with other staff and teachers, including administrators. I love that he's also mentioned the fact that we need to be proactive in thinking about men in classrooms. We need men in classrooms as role models, acting as a guidance leader in the same way. And we also have to realize that children's lives are connected to the adults that they become. So we have power. How many times have I said that too? In this role, you have so much power as an early educator that you are shaping children into who they will be. So with all of that being said, this is a recap of the democratic life skills, the who, what, how, and why. And it really plays a role in the next pieces around challenging behavior and how we view those behaviors and what we do about them.